Hello everyone and welcome to the New York Empoleon's first battle of the PBAL Season 5 playoffs. This is, I believe, the quarterfinal round. We did get a bye. I said it was into semis, but it's not because there's two divisions. So it's sort of like, think about, we passed the wild card round in the MLB, and now we're on to the divisional round. And then next one will be like the championship series, and then it'll be like the World Series. So this is I think it's the quarterfinals. I think it maps out to be the quarterfinals. And so if we win this, we continue, and if we lose, we're out. That's what it really comes down to. It really doesn't matter what round it is. If we win, we're in. If we lose, we're out. Last time we faced this team, we got super unlucky with a freeze on Serena that ended up allowing Grimmsnarl to set up, and I just kind of allowed that to happen and didn't really have any answer to it, and then ended up losing the game. So let's not do that again. I think actually before that point, we were actually in a really good position. So hopefully the changes I made will help me get through and power through this team and not have to worry as much about one piece of hacks ending up ruining my chance at winning the game. His team. My opponent is Bloody, coach of the Charlotte Corviknights. I didn't even say that, but again, if you want to see more, check him out. Links in the description below. But his team is Dragapult, Manectric, Sigilif, Arcanine, Roserade, Grimmsnarl, Blissey, Sableye, Araquanid, Rhydon, and Gmax Copperajah. Absolutely horrifying. My team matches up fairly poorly against this, although he doesn't have a great way to break down the Mandibuzz. It's fully physically defensive in order to handle the Grimmsnarl and the Rhydon and other things that might be able to do a decent amount of damage. That does leave it vulnerable to things like Dragapult, and Spexpult definitely does a lot of work, and maybe the Manectric, although I don't see him bringing the Manectric. I really just don't think that Mon has an optimal matchup here, though if he does, it is clearly going to be to try to handle the Mandibuzz with it. Roost, Foul Play, Whirlwind, and Taunt can really help me punch through that Grimmsnarl. Since Grimmsnarl switches in on this thing pretty freely and tries to set up, Taunt's really good on a switch. Also stops Blissey from trying to go for any healing moves or anything, and potentially stops Dragapult from going for like more subs or something like that if I do think he's going to be like a defensive set. That said, Whirlwind is more optimal against the Grimmsnarl. If I can get some hazards on the field, then perhaps that'll actually really help me and be able to phase out and do damage on the way in. Foul Play doesn't do very much, but it does consistent damage against the Grimmsnarl, since a bulk up doesn't actually make him less resilient to Foul Play because he gets the attack and the defense boost at the same time. This thing, again, it's just going to be a wall. It's going to be hard to break. It's going to be helpful to stop as a stopgap to that Grimmsnarl. I can definitely take a +1 Spirit Break as long as I don't take one on the switch in and then have to take another one on the Whirlwind. So that's easy enough to do, and I can just make sure this thing can handle the Grimmsnarl in a pinch as needed. Next up is my Como-O. Como this week is going to be rocking out with the Dragon Dance, Close Combat, Earthquake, and the Scale Shot, trying to get up to like +2, maybe even +3 speed to make sure I'm outspeeding things like Scarf Pult. And we are going to be able to hopefully do that. We have just enough speed to outpace Dragapult that is not Scarfed at +1 from the Dragon Dance or the Scale Shot, depending on what we go for. Close Combat does more to the Grimmsnarl than Ironhead did, which is why I opted to go for the Earthquake instead of Ironhead here, which can give me an option to hit Arcanine just a little bit harder, and as well as the Copperajah. I'm worried about Chople Copperajah to stop this thing. So if it's in range of an Earthquake, I'd probably opt to go for that over the Close Combat, just in case he is Choppleberry. I do have the Roselli Berry on this thing. I can take one Fairy type move from basically anything. Arcanine, Roserade, Copperajah can all you have the coverage, and I don't want to deal with it. So just being able to take that one hit can really help out in the long run. And allow me to then proceed to either set up a Dragon Dance or go for an attack and get some big damage off before I go down. Next up is the Gengar. Gmax Gengar this week is going to be Shadow Ball, Sludge Wave, Destiny Bond, and the Focus Blast. Destiny Bond, honestly, is to stop and scout for Sucker Punch Grimmsnarl, since he can't beat me with the Destiny Bond. If he goes for Sucker Punch, I don't die, and it gives me an option for Max Guard as well, which is kind of useful to have just in case. And if I have the Destiny Bond up, and he goes for another Sucker Punch, then we both die, and if he doesn't go for a Sucker Punch, then I get a big hit off, and he allows me to get that damage in. So instead of just risking losing Gengar right away, Destiny Bond gives me the opportunity to guarantee get some damage off on the Grimmsnarl, because if I do go for Destiny Bond and he goes straight for Dark's Lariat, then I die, but so does he, and if he goes for Sucker Punch and a Destiny Bond, then he goes for Sucker Punch again as I go for a Sludge Wave, then I die, but so does he, because Destiny Bond is still active until the next time that I choose to make a move. So if he chooses to go Sucker Punch, I Destiny Bond, then he goes Darkest Lariat, so I outspeed, and I go Sludge Wave. then I'm able to get the damage off with a Sludge Wave. It doesn't always kill. If I go for a G-Max and get to maybe +1 before I do that, then yeah, maybe I can kill him, but probably not going to kill, but it's at least going to be able to get damage off on the Grimmsnarl, guaranteed with this Gengar. And I didn't really have any other move I was like dying for, so I figured let's run that, give that little bit of tech in there, and hopefully that works out and can allow me to take out one threat on his roster in addition to the Gengar. And it's G-Max, so hopefully it can do more work than that, since it can take just about any one hit, and giving it the option for like a max guard against a Copperajah that has one more turn of G-Max left can potentially save the game. So that's why I'm definitely happy to run Destiny Bond there. Focus Blast is for the Copperajah. It does a little bit more damage than anything else I could possibly run, as well as being a decent option against Blissey, because I just need something that hits Blissey a little bit harder. Next up is the Mamoswine, Ice Shard, Roar, Stealth Rock, and Earthquake. This is a weird set this week, but honestly, this thing does so much damage. It's just honestly so good against his roster. And it's going to be rocking out with, I believe, the Expert Belt, but let me double check my notes. Yeah, it's got an Expert Belt on it. And is just, oh my god, this thing hits so hard. Expert Belted Ice Shard is going to Oko the Roserade after rocks or spikes damage, which, spoilers, I have spikes on my roster. Expert Belt Earthquake does just a stupid amount of damage to everything except Araquanid. I have Roar for the Grimmsnarl getting out of hand, because I think he'll try to set up on me instead of, like, if he's like at +3, I assume he's going to try to set up on the Mamoswine instead of going straight for an attack. So if he goes for one more bulk up, I can Roar and get rid of that and remove it. So it's a backup option for the Mandibuzz. Obviously not the primary option for it, but the other thing that it really handles is a Cosmic Power Sigilif, which is only a problem if my Mandibuzz goes down and Sigilif starts setting up. So having Roar as just a backup option is great. Plus, this thing too, it KOs everything on its roster that isn't Araquanid with one of its 2 moves that it has, and Ice Shard is just good priority to have access to just in case I need it. So since I decided not to run a ton of speed, and then Stealth Rocks are good, but I don't think I'll need them. But in a situation in which I have the opportunity to set them up against something like the Sableye, that I'm pretty sure is either going to switch out or just go for a recover or something, I can just go for the Stealth Rock and have them up for the rest of the game, which is super nice, because his only removal, as I talked about last time this team builder came around, is Sigilif. So if he doesn't have it, or if it's dead, he can't remove hazards, so they'll just be there and passively wearing him down. Next up is my Vikavolt. Vikavolt this week is going to be Sticky Web, Volt Switch, Mud Shot, and Bug Buzz. Yes, we are rocking out with the Mud Shot Vikavolt, because otherwise this thing has a lot of trouble handling a couple of his threats. The Arcanine, if it's specially defensive, is definitely a pain, and the Copperajah is a huge nuisance. But honestly, this thing has the ability to have such fun speed control options now with both Sticky Web and Mudshot. Again, with Sigilif being its only removal, Sticky Web is there to stay if I can get it up. I am rocking out with the Akaberry, which is exactly the item I ran against him last time, but having access to the Mudshot means that even Boots Arcanine can't switch in on this thing. As I go for the Mudshot, it gets to -1 speed anyway, and then I can potentially just Volt Switch off of it or Mudshot again. I have enough speed to outspeed uninvested Arcanine at -1. So this thing is going to be able to potentially handle a lot of his roster that could switch into it with that Mudshot. And things like the Manectric that he's like, oh, he's going to Volt Switch. I just Mudshot and immediately have a much better position. That super effective damage is amazing. Dragapult at -2, so if Sticky Webs are up and he's not Clear Body, and then I go for the Mudshot, then I can outspeed that. So this thing has a good little niche here in this battle. I think Volt Switch is super spammable, since I don't see Rhydon being the threat that comes. Mudshot's also super effective against that. And Manectric, if it comes, again, I don't think Vikavolt's what it wants to handle, because it could go for a Bug Buzz and do a lot of damage to Manectric, so I don't see him bringing it in on the Vikavolt freely. And so he's going to have to go into something that he knows resists Volt Switch. That's something like the Dragapult or the Roserade. And neither of those want to have -1 speed, potentially even -2. So that's what I'm running this Vikavolt for. Hopefully it works. Mudshot, it does have 95% accuracy, so it makes me a little bit nervous. But hopefully, I've never run Mudshot in a competitive league battle before, so we're going to see how that goes. And lastly, we have Mew this week, rocking out with Reflect, Spike, Psychic Fangs, and Knockoff. I did opt for a physical Mew this week, mostly because I really wanted Knockoff, and because Psychic Fangs is just better against the Blissey, which is the more general switch into Mew, although Grimmsnarl is baited in by this. Knockoff is super helpful to get rid of the Grimmsnarl's leftovers. Spikes are incredibly good in this matchup, and Reflect is just helpful, because if I have a Reflect up, if I go for it against the Grimmsnarl, and then I switch into the Mandibuzz, it's taking hits so much better, so I can be able to have my check to the Grimmsnarl, or really become a counter to the Grimmsnarl, if I can get that Reflect up. I'm rocking out with the Kasib Berry. I've gone back and forth between Leftovers and Kasib Berry, but since Dragapult's such a threat to my team, it's just such a huge monster against my roster, I just figured having the Kasib Berry is better. This thing's not supposed to take a hit from Grimmsnarl, like that's not the idea of this set, so I'm not as worried about Grimmsnarl here, but having that Kasib Berry, maybe being able to get a knockoff off on that Dragapult could end up being the difference between winning and losing the game, since one Ice Shard doesn't kill, but after a knockoff, an Ice Shard from Mamoswine does kill the Dragapult, especially if I've got some layers of hazards up, and that thing has to deal with, like, switching in on maybe a layer of spikes and stealth rocks, plus taking a knockoff. The Ice Shard will guaranteed kill it. So that's the sets this week. That's the game plan that we're running with. Hopefully it all works out because this is the playoffs and there's no second chances here. So I will see you guys all back here tomorrow with this battle, my first of the PBAL playoffs. Take care, everybody.